Starbound. You know, that one game that was touted as Terraria in space for years before the devs finished it and stopped updating it in 2019, even though this game would heavily benefit from some kind of new content. Like, if Chucklefish had spent a bit more time polishing the game's mechanics and storyline, not even adding new content, the game would have been in a very much better place than where it ended up. I do expect most people to at least know what Starbound is, since it has oddly high reviews and has been out for a very long time. Also, conceptually, it sounds amazing. It's a two-dimensional space exploration sandbox RPG. It's like a toned-down version of what a lot of overzealous companies wanted to create in the past decade or two, except most of these games were in limbo for years and had less than stellar results to show for their effort, whereas Starbound hit full release to critical acclaim. And I don't actually know why. For the price tag of $15, I suppose it's worth it, but there are other games that actually do the sandbox genre justice, like Terraria or Krea. I mean, sure, if you don't want something fantastical but rather science fiction-y, Starbound might scratch that itch, but I'd still argue that if you're looking for a sci-fi sandbox RPG, or just looking for something involving space exploration in general, there are still better options out there. Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to come out and tell you that Starbound, in my opinion, is terrible in vanilla. Like, if you just buy it and play through it, it's a pretty bland game. Hell, No Man's Sky on release was more fun to play than Starbound is, and Starbound is considered finished by its own developer. So you're probably not going to have a great time playing it, at least as long as you're alone and not playing with those things called friends.
What are those?
Starbound is great with friends, but alone? Whew, you're in for a rough time. From the lackluster story elements to the monotonous main questline, which consists of talking to some old bitch in a floating wheelchair who tells you to go scan shit out in the universe to unlock the next story mission. Rinse and repeat. That's basically what Starbound does. It is a terrible way to force players into exploration, and it's an awful way to try and tell a story.
What the hell is this?
And if all of that wasn't enough, the exploration element in Starbound isn't all that great either. There's only like 10 different planet types, and none of them are really all that crazy. You never land on a planet where it literally rains glass sideways at such a high speed that it would poke holes in your body like Swiss cheese. Or a planet that used to be a gas giant, but it's so close to a star that all of that gas disintegrated, leaving the dead core of the planet exposed. Or a planet with multiple stars in its solar system, so its day-night cycle is not consistent. On a planet like that, you could have 11 hours of nighttime followed by 136 hours of daylight. The point of all of this is that the universe in real life is fucking bananas, and Starbound does not translate that cosmic chaos into gameplay at all. Once you've seen a planet for the first time, you've seen it for the 90th time. And the game is filled with shitty coding. There are very well-known memory leaks that just never got patched, even to this day. The devs that actually got paid for their work never even bothered to iron out those bugs in the code. For example, this game actually plays better on 32-bit mode. If you run this game in 64-bit and you have massive FPS drops or crashes, you can run this game in 32-bit mode for a way more stable performance, which is absolutely ridiculous. Anyways, the vanilla game has some serious issues. I'm not going to say that I didn't have fun playing vanilla Starbound, but the good moments were few and far between, being drastically overshadowed by the rest of the game, which was relatively boring in comparison. I don't like leaving things on a negative note, so I'm going to quickly go over one of the things that Starbound did very, very well in my opinion: instruments.
Okay now, how many of you have played musical instruments before?
Do instruments of torture count?
No.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument.
That might sound like a bit of a weird thing to give him props for, but the instruments in Starbound are actually really cool. There are a bunch of them, from an electric bass guitar to a space synth to a trumpet. You can import .abc file types, which are basically files containing music notes that the game can read, and any instrument in-game can play that song. It's kinda neat, and it creates some interesting experiences. I mean, the ability to go around blasting caramel dancing on an accordion is an experience no matter how you slice it. However, unless you're playing with people to annoy or impress with your music, instruments kind of lose their shine after a little while, once again reaffirming my point that Starbound is best played with other people. Anyway, let's get to the actual point that I wanted to make here. If you're gonna play this game, alone or otherwise, you can't play vanilla, at least not after you've already beaten the game as the developers intended. you have to go modded. It's pretty much just a straight improvement over the vanilla experience. STARBOUND is like a Bethesda game made after 2007. Without mods, it's kinda boring.
So you can follow my train of thought here with my data that I've laid out. Honestly, when you look at it like this, I mean, I don't even need to say anything. It's pretty obvious.
Unlike a Bethesda game, because STARBOUND is on Steam and it has a workshop, the modding experience is incredibly simple for users. You don't have to dig around with different mod managers unlike Bethesda games. It's all on the Steam workshop and it's all very easy to access. This is why I recommend arguably the greatest mod ever developed for STARBOUND, FRACKIN Universe. A mod that has been around for STARBOUND for a very long time, with pretty consistent updates to this day. The amount of content that FRACKIN Universe adds is, quite frankly, absurd. But FRACKIN Universe is not like other content expansion mods. Sure, there are mods out there that add new quests and factions and equipment, or mods that add new planet types, but FRACKIN Universe does more than that. FRACKIN Universe twists the game into a completely new and refreshing experience. You know how I mentioned that planet types in vanilla STARBOUND are boring? FRACKIN Universe fixes that. You can land on some pretty interesting planets. An ocean-like planet where the ocean is liquid nitrogen? A planet that's probably the corpse of some cosmic entity, where the ground is made of flesh and the core of the planet is either cold blood or festering pus? A planet made completely out of crystals, or one with massive fungus growing along the surface? How about a planet made completely out of slime? Or a planet that you land on, where everything seems completely normal? Similar to an idyllic Earth, with grass and dirt and trees, except there's no animals here. There's no fauna at all. The entire planet is quiet. Funny how exploration in FRACKIN Universe is actually interesting, huh? What else can you do? Well, have you ever wanted to enrich radioactive isotopes in your kitchen and then plug them into a hulking Gundam that you then pilot into a village of mushroom people, demolishing their houses as you simply walk straight through them, every step you take reverberating through the ground like an earthquake? How about throwing a bomb made out of pure neutronium into a crowded space station? Open a briefcase full of bees, or become a beekeeper and raise your own. You like alcohol? Try brewing a liquor made out of the physical manifestation of entropy, and then drink it, you fucking alcoholic. In vanilla STARBOUND, your spaceship is locked to your race, with each race getting a starship that progresses as you add new crew members, getting bigger and bigger until you're basically in a flying fortress. But what if you didn't want to drive around a flying fortress? What if you wanted to drive around a giant dick throughout the cosmos? Or maybe you wanted to pilot Hatsune Miku's face? The sky is the limit with the build your own ship system added with FRACKIN Universe. Use tiny little gnomes in your sweatshop slave factory and let them do all the crafting for you. Don't worry, it's not technically illegal, because the Protectorate doesn't classify gnomes as a sentient race, nor should anyone. Or you could be ethical, whatever that means, and use a manufacturing facility to craft instead. FRACKIN Universe adds a power system, with a lot of workstations requiring electricity to work properly, like the manufacturing facility. This means that you need to generate power using a variety of buildings. This can be clean power, like a wind turbine or a solar panel, but it could also be something like a nuclear reactor or a combustion generator. On the other hand, you have some more esoteric forms of power generation, like the neuropsionic generator, which basically takes brains as a fuel source. Yes, you can take a creature's brain and stick it into a jar with some embalming fluid, and yes, this machine does use brains in a jar as a power source. Is it probably sentient? Sure, but it powers your space-age sex toys, so who cares? Speaking of the batshit crazy things that you can do in FRACKIN Universe, there is a system of insanity implemented into the mod. You can actually accumulate a resource called madness through different ways, like looking at stuff that you probably shouldn't be looking at, or writing some pretty fucked up erotica. This madness can be used to research some pretty ridiculous stuff, like the ability to hire a magical girl crewmate or the ability to craft those psionic generators I mentioned earlier. At a certain point, the mod gets a little Lovecraftian. However, you do need to be careful because the more madness that you accumulate, the more severe the consequences. This will start off minor, like small debuffs to stats like energy and defense, but they'll escalate into full-blown insanity, primarily with hallucinations, both auditory and visual. Like random letters floating around your screen, or fake messages popping up from your sail. At a certain point, you might become like Kevin. Don't become like Kevin. Kevin is an asshole. Nobody likes him. He's probably into lolicon. Now, Kevin is a pretty interesting character, all jokes aside. His wiki page reads like the biography of Kim Jong-un, but one sentence from his wiki stuck out to me. There is a 102-page codex located in a bookshelf near the front of the science outpost that details each and every one of his pranks, which involve things such as pouring sulfuric acid on someone and hatching ixoling eggs in the air vents. Everyone at the science outpost has been pranked by him, they all hate him and want him dead. By the time that I started writing this script, I had played FRACKIN Universe pretty extensively and never saw this codex of all of his shenanigans. So I went to the outpost and tried to find it, and sure enough, it does exist. I actually read through all 102 pages, and I gotta admit, most of them are pretty fucking funny. This codex spans multiple years, which is bonkers to me lore-wise, but I'm not gonna spend forever reading this entire codex, though I sure would like to. Instead, I think I'll just read you some of my favorites. June 2nd. Against all better judgment, I allowed Kevin to borrow my Bunsen burner. When asked to return it, he brought back a small stack of ash and announced that you can burn a Bunsen burner with another Bunsen burner if you allow it to burn long enough. June 25th. Despite his clear genius, when asked on where he completed his education, Kevin merely slapped me on the ass and told me to be a good servant and go get him a coffee. He then proceeded to follow me around for the rest of the day, making wide load truck beeping sounds every time I moved. July 8th. Woke up to find my eyelids glued together. Thanks, Kevin. February 25th. Kevin has been missing for several days. Nobody knows where he is. Also, somebody has been eating my cheesecake. I'll ask the cooks to bring it to my office. February 27th. I'm sure somebody is breaking into my personal office to do nothing else but eat my cheesecake. Sounds like something that Kevin would do, but he's nowhere to be seen. March 1st. After routine inspection, everything has been accounted for except for the prototype phase shift module Dr. Nilsson has been working on. I have a very bad feeling about this. March 2nd. I found a note on my desk. You talk about cheesecake while you sleep. You also snore. Love, Kevin. I think I need to undergo psychiatric reevaluation. Now, I do want to point out that FRACKIN Universe is not perfect, and there are things about the mod that I do not like. But the mod is, in almost every aspect, a vast improvement over the base game. It adds tons of new content and new systems of science and chemistry, and really just fleshes out a lot of what the vanilla game was missing. Good old science fiction fun. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Why did you just spend 10 minutes talking about STARBOUND and a mod for STARBOUND? Well, consider this to be the introduction video for a series of my playthrough of FRACKIN Universe. I originally planned to shove my entire playthrough along with this introduction into a single video, but after recording this script and just realizing the sheer scale of what I'm creating, I decided to chop this up into multiple videos instead. I know that this is slightly unconventional, but I was looking for a new format for my videos, a format that I can use when I'm creating videos alone. I've always liked other YouTubers like Soviet Womble, Martin Cedo Pants, Seth Zintak, and even some smaller ones like Dosh Doshington, all of which are amazing creators that you should absolutely check out. I've never really been in a situation to make very heavily edited and narrated videos like this before, because I've been comfortable in the past with my style. But I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone and try new things. Hopefully you like this style, because I intend to make a few STARBOUND videos of a similar nature. Stay tuned for those. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I thank you for watching.